So this is where I have an absolute pleasure of not fully introducing, because Charmaine will be introducing herself, but I have the pseudo paving the path into her talk opportunity to give right now. So this is really particularly fitting, as Charmaine has really played a significant role in my growth as a change maker over time. I would say a pivotal role, actually. Charmaine intends to share more about herself and her journey as it has bearing on her talk, but I would be remiss not to acknowledge Charmaine's gifts, in particular as both a coach and a critical friend. And in fact, if you go and check out her LinkedIn profile, Critical Friend is up there, because that is the gift that she brings to ecosystems, to leaders, to organizations, because she shows up both with gifts of creativity and innovation and in-depth listening skills, but also the ability to provide direction and support and constructively help folks action places and ways they need to go. She's supported Georgian with critical insight over the last several years, helping us as we lean into impacting in our Georgian ecosystem and our communities. And as a change champion, she brings an enormous change-making gift to the institutions that she inspires. So with that, I would just say, please join with me in welcoming Charmaine. And thank you so much for being here, Charmaine.
Thank you, Tracy. Good morning, everybody. Hi, can you hear me? I'm just gonna do a little check. Can you, audible? Wonderful. I can see your clapping. Thank you very much. Thanks for the warm welcome, Tracy. Thanks for the warm up, Ian, in WooClap. I didn't know how many times I would hear you say that word, but it was amazing. I am Charmaine Lyn. Thank you, Jordan College, for inviting me today to be part of your Focus on Changemaking event. I'm going to quickly introduce myself and then get into changemaking with you to kick off your day. And we'll think together about what changemaking is and why it matters, and particularly why it matters for educators. And just in response to Mary's last comment, I'm going to propose that changemaking is a viable alternative to screaming into the void. It is a really appropriate thing to grab onto when that instinct hits you. So I'm Charmaine. I'm joining you from the unceded territory of the Wabanaki Dawnland Confederacy, where I have a privilege to live and work. The Confederacy is home to the Passamaquoddy, the Penobsquat, the Abenaki, the Mi'kmaq, and the Maliseet nations, and is also known as the Eastern Townships of Quebec. I came to be here by way of immigration as a child. I was born in Jamaica to two Chinese parents who were also born in Jamaica. I'm the youngest of five children, raised almost entirely by my mom, by herself. My dad was incarcerated when I was 11 years old. And that brought lots of things with it that sort of shaped how I think of myself and how I experience the world. As a first generation university attendee, I studied English literature and then later law at McGill University. And then I went on to work in the universities for 15 years. I led equity and inclusion as it related to admissions and recruitment for McGill's Faculty of Law, and then later for the Office of Admissions, Equity, and Diversity in the Faculty of Medicine. So really trying to change the intake of very elite professional programs to a very big and important university in the Canadian landscape. And then I went on to Concordia University, where I was appointed as the senior director of the Office of Community Engagement. So going from the kind of gatekeeping of admissions to opening relations between educators, researchers, and community organizations, and trying to level the playing field of partnership across those differences. At Concordia, I was also appointed to be one of two special advisors to the Provo on Indigenous Directions, and I was one of two non-Indigenous members of the Indigenous Directions Leadership Group that led the university's responses to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, and also internal calls to action that had been coming up the ranks for many years before the TRC was actually published. Almost 5 years ago now, I left university work from the trenches and moved over to Ashoka, Canada, where I was appointed as the director of Changemaker Education, shifting there from doing work on the ground inside to universities to supporting change work and the people who do it alongside colleges and universities across the country. And this is how and when I came to know and work with the change makers and change leaders of Georgian College. Hi, everybody. Such a wonderful team, so energized to be in the company of Georgian College change leaders. It's always a privilege and a gift. Having led equity focused change efforts in post secondary for almost 20 years, from inside and from outside, I feel I have a pretty keen understanding of the frustrations, but also the enormous promise of transforming culture within post secondary and really any complex organization where people are trying to change the world. Um, I as Tracy noted when she introduced me, I'm also a practicing professional coach, which is a certification I picked up in order to better serve people who are inside these organizations. Often racialized people like myself. I had a difficult time finding racialized support, coaches, mentors, therapists, as I was trying to do this work. And so I committed myself to learning this practice. And that's the work that I do alongside other work that I do now with an Indigenous led organization called Indigenized. And so I really appreciate, Tracy, your land acknowledgement and you really bringing it to your own personal perspective of how this shows up for you in your life. And I hope that in this introduction, you're hearing not just where I live and where I reside, but how this work, really deep personal work of decolonizing myself, has really transformed the professional way that I show up in the world, and the sense of grounding and power that this work really has brought out in me, and that I hope you will experience today, in this emerging moment today, this morning. That's kind of where we're headed. Um, I I want to bring back Murray Sinclair again. Thank you for reminding us of his wonderful teachings, Tracy. He very poignantly said, education got us into this, education will get us out of it. And that's something that really I believe in. Post secondary has been given me lots of benefits and advantages. It has also been very harmful in many ways to many people, but it has enormous potential to heal, to repair, and to help us course correct, to move towards the kind of do-over that you shared with us, Tracy, in your teaching. So I'm here with you today because I believe that long-term deep change is most likely to happen and to hold when it occurs at multiple levels, when it happens at the level of the individual and the level of the organizational, in order to shift the system level. So I think this is what is at the heart of change making. And I believe that post-secondary in particular holds enormous power and potential to activate change making at all of these levels, in students, in staff, in faculty, and in the communities in which our colleges and universities live and exist. And this is why I'm here today. I'm going to take a moment to ask you to pause for yourselves. And if you have a little piece of paper beside you or something to write on or somewhere to take a note, to just kind of center yourself and think about why you are here right now, why you made this decision. You have many things, I'm sure, competing for your time. And it's a real gift. And I want to thank you in this moment as you're reflecting on why you're here today, for choosing to be here, for making the time to be here, and for pushing things aside in order to be present with the rest of the group here today? I can't see anybody's faces, so I don't know if people have their heads down and are writing, or if people are ready to kind of keep going, but I just wanted to have that little moment of you setting an intention or kind of reflecting on where your heart is today. Okay, so let's talk about change making. And here I'm going to need maybe some help from other people I have everybody squished into the screen. And I'm hoping that maybe Tracy or Ian, if you can help me just read people's responses. I'm wondering if by show of hands, either use your raise the hand like in Teams or your actual human hand. If you can tell me if you have seen the term change maker in the news or in maybe in somebody's LinkedIn profile. Has anybody seen the word change maker in social media? I'm seeing 2 human hands go up, but I don't see any virtual hands. Oh, some more virtual hands. Amazing. Okay, 6, 7 virtual. Is that what that means? The number beside is that there's that many people with their hands up?
Yeah,
Yes,
and we're up to 12
13.
now.
Okay, so you've seen it. Okay, put your hands down. Another question's coming at you. How many of you have called yourself a change maker ever, anywhere, in any space? Hands up. Okay. So I'm thinking fewer than the last round. Yes? Okay. Okay.
Before.
Now, for the next, I have a few more questions that I'm going to ask you to respond in the chat. So I'm going to need help kind of reading the chat. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to type your answer. And when I say hit return, but don't hit return until I say hit return so that we see everybody's answers come down all at once. Okay. Think of somebody you would describe as a change maker in your own mind. They could be somebody famous. They could be a colleague. It could be somebody in your family, in your community, somebody you see and you're like, that person's a change maker. Okay, you've got them in your mind. Now, in the chat, but don't hit return yet, name a quality that that person has, kind of character trait, 1 or 2 words. You can hit return now. I don't know what just happened.
They're coming in fast and furious.
Okay, my whole teams just went white. I don't see anybody's faces or anything anymore. Did that happen to anybody else?
No.
Okay, interesting. But can you hear me and see me?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't see anything in Teams anymore. It's literally just gone white.
Oh no.
It's
So-
probably just too much at once happening. So you continue because we can all see you perfectly fine.
Okay, can anybody tell me if there are words coming up in the chat?
There are a slew of words. I can help you with that if you like.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, focus, listener, kindness, awareness, compassion, leadership, innovative, brave, positive, listens, persistent, excellent speaker, empathy, passionate, rigor,
Amazing.
good listener, vision, dynamic, patient, perseverance.
This is great. Okay, ready for another question? And I'm hoping it's not going to blow up Teams. Okay, now keep this person in your mind. You're still thinking of the same person. Name a mindset that you associate with this person, a way that they see the world, or a way that they see maybe problems, an outlook that they have. And then you can hit return now.
Again, they're coming in fast and furious.
Okay, great.
Positive perspective, thinking outside of the box, seeing potential, a place of yes,
Mm,
Problems are a challenge to overcome. Optimism, growth, forward thinking, ever changing. Challenges, optimistic, growth. They don't see problems. Potential is what they see.
Wow. Wonderful. Okay. Tracy, I hope somebody is saving this chat for posterity. This is wonderful stuff here. Okay, last question. Name, think of this person, got them in your mind, you see them doing their thing. Name a skill that you associate with this person, something that they are able to do and do effectively as a change maker. And hit return.
We have communicate, listen, uh, facilitating groups, entrepreneur,
Mm, mm,
problem solving with kindness, listening, motivation, great speaker, build trust, challenge status quo, building relationships, teaching.
great. Thank you so much. So I'm still seeing a white screen in front of me with nothing else, and I'm tempted to hit the reload on my browser, and I'm also afraid to do that. Ian, do you have any thoughts about whether I should just continue looking at a blank screen or try to reload my
Um,
web browser to try to be able to see? Because I can keep going and try to just
yeah, you know
not
what?
see
I mean,
you.
everyone can hear you and see you perfectly. It's really your comfort, I think, in terms
Okay.
of what you're seeing or not seeing, I guess.
Okay.
Ashley
It's a
notes, just Ashley notes that usually leaving and rejoining does fix things. So maybe Charmaine, you've lifted us with some thoughts. Do you want to leave and come back on the same link?
I don't want to leave you at all. I just want you to, it's the strangest experience to be looking at nothing. So I'm going to keep going
Okay.
and just let me, I'm going to need just open communication with you, Ian and Tracy, to kind of know what's happening in the room if there's anything I need to know.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Thank you. All right. So I'm really, really delighted that you were participating, and I do really hope that we can save that chat because I think it's really interesting to see just what you come up with on your own. Ashoka has spent a lot of time thinking about what a change maker is and how to define it. And one definition that we use a lot goes as follows. And if I had access to the chat, I would drop this in the chat, but I'll send it to you in another way after. But a change maker is someone who imagines a new reality and takes action and collaborates with others to bring that new reality into being for the good of others. It's a bit of a mouthful, but you've got all the three levels there. Someone, an individual who imagines a new reality. That's the one person, the individual, who takes action and collaborates with others. The level of organization, at the team, at the organizational level, and slash the capacity to organize. So to organize people to do something together. And then the system piece for the good of others. And that is the idea of systems change as shifting conditions that hold problems in place. And problems affect people. And so we're really talking about this altruistic view that drives the practice of change making. Think about things like when we're talking about systems change, think about things like universal health care, think about weekends, think about minimum wage. I'm thinking of my friends in the food movement who are screaming at the top of their lungs that food insecurity is not a food issue, that at its roots, it's an income issue. Um, that's sort of where we're pitching our view right now. So Ashoka was founded in 1980. And it started out as a network to support and accelerate the work of high impact social entrepreneurs, people who have been able to implement programs and policies that shift conditions that hold problems in place. that shift long-held beliefs, behaviors, mindsets. And the first Ashoka Fellow was elected in 1981, and her name was Gloria D'Souza, and she was an educator. She was an educator who wanted to transform a very traditional, rote kind of education that was being offered in India and transform it into something that she called, what she named her organization, Parisar Asha, that took the government mandated curriculum and translated it into an experiential learning system where students could internalize concepts, develop skills through applied learning, and grow their attitudes and values to make them a conscientious conserver of the global parisar, which is the environment in Sanskrit. Um, so that's the kind of origin story of Ashoka Fellows. There are now over 3,800 fellows across the globe in 90 plus countries. And while not everybody can be Gloria D'Souza and shift entire systems, Ashoka was convinced that there was value in sharing and amplifying the ways in which people like Gloria and other Ashoka fellows were able to achieve the level and scale of systems change in the communities that they did. That these people had very particular insights, very particular ways of working, ways of seeing and being in the world that actually contribute to their ability to make a difference and to make serious change happen. And this is the heart of Ashoka's vision of a world in which everyone is a change maker. Not everyone can be an Ashoka fellow, but everyone can think, everyone can question and behave in ways that contribute to positive change at any scale, including the buddy bench in the elementary schoolyard. That's change making. Ashoka's vision is a vision of schools, workplaces, community organizations full of people who have a sense of agency and hope at the level of self. They understand the crucial importance of inviting others into this way of being at the level of team and community. And they do this with their eyes on the prize, really shifting a system to solve a problem in a sustainable way that will actually lead to transformation. They're change makers, and we think of change makers as practical visionaries. And they have certain qualities that we talked about in the chat that Ashoka has distilled down into sort of pillars of change making characteristics. And these really inform the kind of education that Georgian College is offering, as well as the kind of education that's happening at the 40 some other campuses across the globe that are designated, like Georgian College, as Ashoka Changemaker campuses. So what are these core pillars, these competencies that make up a change maker? You talked about a lot of them in the chat, and the ones that Ashoka has come out with as the core four are empathy. So that came up very clearly in your chat. Empathy is at the heart of understanding a problem, understanding the challenge, and how problems are experienced by the people who live in proximity to them. The other pillar is collaboration and teamwork. The clear pathway to sustainable change is that you're not going to have a heropreneur come in and fix a problem by themselves. It requires a collective. It requires a movement often in order to make serious systems level change happen. And it takes skill to be able to move many people toward a singular vision. Change making leadership is the other pillar. And a view of leadership in which everyone has gifts, strengths, and knowledge and wisdom to bring to the table, and a view of leadership that involves cultivating and making space for the leadership of others. The fourth pillar is practicing change making. So really thinking about it as not something that you learn and then you're an expert in it, but it's a practice, it's a discipline, it's a way of being and thinking and doing. And those habits create and support mindsets. And then the extra ingredient is always the for what. And it's for the good of others, it's for the good of all, and it's for trying to untangle that thorny problem, to kind of improve the conditions in the system. So that's an overview, I think, of what change making is, and how I understand it, and how we talk about it in Ashoka and Changemaker campus universes. And so why does this matter? You're here today, you've given up lots of time to be here today. Why does it matter to us? Why does it matter to us as educators? Um, Recently, Ashoka Canada partnered with an organization called First Book Canada and a funding partner called Audemars Piguet to launch a set of resources called Time for Change Canada. And these are free resources that are available right now for K to 12 educators. And they're designed to help educators introduce and activate change making in their schools and in their communities. I believe that the resources are part of the resources that you will have access to through a link. I can't see anything, so maybe somebody will drop a link in a chat. But I'll work with Tracy to make sure that you have access to the Time for Change resources. What I'm getting to here is that we recently did a focus group with K to 12 educators about these resources, how they were going to be using them, and why this was important to them and to their students. And the educators were sharing some very real challenges that are showing up in their classrooms. And at the very, very simplest level, they were telling us that their kids need to learn how to be together, both little kids and big kids. Coming out of COVID, many kids started school during COVID and just don't actually even know how to be in community. And so for educators at that level, they're talking about how to get the kids to be together, how to get them to understand that they are in community with others. Um, they want them to learn how to spot problems and to make decisions about how to act when they're confronted with problems. And they want them to start developing a sense of agency in the K to 12 zone. And the educators that we were talking to were quite early in the K to 12 spectrum. At the level of post-secondary, we also have post-COVID in our learners that we're still adapting, still bringing students back into classrooms, still bringing faculty and staff back into the workplaces. And the sector is at an inflection point and has been for a prolonged period of time. Pandemic, implications on mental health, implications on registration numbers that are now confronting colleges and universities, the climate crisis, social inequality, threats to democratic institutions, challenges in what we don't know is going to happen to the workforce for all of those reasons, and things like AI. Students and faculty and staff are confronted with so many complex challenges at the same time as trying to do their day job and their work of being learners. And I think change making matters in the post-secondary sector because change making offers an educational framework that supports learning and working in ways that combine disciplinary knowledge. So this is the bread and butter of faculty. It complements disciplinary knowledge and brings in the realities, the contextual realities that students are experiencing when they step out of the classroom, and bringing it into the classroom with them. It is solutions oriented, it's action oriented, it's looking towards long-term solutions that are very, very much in the front of the mind of young learners right now. And change making absolutely supports the vision of and the prioritization that post-secondary institutions have made around equity, diversity, inclusion, belonging, decolonization, and social and environmental sustainability. We're talking about the root causes of complex problems. And change making helps us to get at those things, to see them, and to understand how we can identify places for change. So we have K to 12 learners. It's relevant for K to 12 learners. It's relevant for post-secondary learners, for lifelong learners, professionals, educators. All of this applies to us as well. You may have heard the acronym VUCA. It stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. This is the kind of world that we're operating in as organizational leaders and educators. And against this backdrop, leaders don't necessarily need to be the kind of leaders that we grew up thinking were leaders. They don't have to be at the front of the room all the time. They don't have to be people with all of the answers. And in fact, that's not always helpful. Changemaking has a view that leadership, like I said, is almost from the back of the room and bringing out the leadership in others. And in a context, and also to be able to see the vision, the way out of the problem. And to do this, lifelong learners turn to changemaking to be able to be connected to their values, their organizational values, to have the skills and abilities to ask good questions in their teams and in their systems, to work well with other people, and to listen and really listen to the kinds of answers that are going to come to those good questions that they ask. Leaders need to know how to support others in accessing their own wisdom and power and cultivating practices that are actually teamwork. In our organizations, there's a language out there right now of like working across differences. And it's like we're required to work across differences, and it feels like an onus. And I think that changemaking offers up a vision of this working across difference as a gift. And it comes back to this fundamental idea that empathy is at the heart of this. Changemaking starts with the premise that diverse views, lived experiences are fundamentally important to understanding a problem and imagining solutions that might actually work in addressing that problem, and solutions that will actually be taken in by the communities that are affected by those problems, and not just pasted on like a Band-Aid. Change making is about agency, imagination, collaboration for a better world, wherever it can happen and at any scale. For me, it's also about accepting that change is happening and deciding that you can influence that change. You can shape that change to the best of your ability. And there are 1,000 reasons why this is needed urgently. You can choose any number of the many aspects of the poly crisis that we're confronting right now. So I want to ask you at this point to think about why this matters to you. I invite you to go back to your little piece of paper where you wrote down earlier why you're here, and give a moment to think about why this matters to you. What change do you want to see in your world? And with that, I'm going to stop and wish you an amazing day. And I don't know what's happening in the room. I can't see anybody's faces or anything, but I'm going to stop there, and maybe Tracy, if you can talk to me and tell me if we have time for questions. I'm happy to take any questions.
We absolutely do, Charmaine. So I'm so sorry that you're going through this experience with Teams right now. I can't imagine how odd that must be to see nothing. There has been a sharing of resources, including some of the ones you alluded to in the chat. So folks are up to speed on that. And we do have a flow code that we'll continue to share as well. Just wanted to, so we do have time for questions. I just wanted to acknowledge on behalf of the folks who are in this space, who you can't see, a significant thank you for coming and sharing, so clearly these really important questions. What is it? Why does it matter? How does it connect to me? And inspiring us to actually think inside because that's where change making starts. And then from the inside to think outside. That is just such a gift, and I can listen to you, as you know, for days. And so now I would turn it over, though. We have about, I would say, about 8 minutes for questions or thoughts with folks before we move on in some more thinking activities today.
Awesome.
So tossing it out now to folks to either use chat or unmute, share any thoughts, anything that bubbled up, any sharings that you might have.
Also really happy if anybody wants to chat or open their mic and share what they might have written down on their piece of paper. No pressure, but curious if anybody wants to share.
So much. And Mary, we have a hand up, Mary Dobson.
Hi, Charmaine. I just wanted to say just what you were actually just said about the thoughts at the beginning and the end. And mine were kind of simple, and yet I really felt like I completed a circle with my sort of why, and why and what I wanted, totally connected. And I never really, I guess, framed it that way before. So thank you. That was really great.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mary.
Sure.
Yeah, it's hard work changing anything. And that first question of like, why does it matter to me to make this change happen is like the battery that will keep the work going. It's the source of energy for me anyways, in any change work, that why, that purpose, that vision, the dream. What is the thing that I know can be better if I keep moving in this direction? It's a helpful framing for any kind of change that you want to see in your life or in your workplace.
Thank you. I love that notion of the battery. That I've never thought about that before, but what a phenomenal gift. Thank you so much. We do have another question, and so I'm not sure, but CEYJM at Canadian Forces Base. That's what we're going with.
So I'm Jay. I'm from the Training Development Center with the forces. Not a question, but two comments.
Yeah.
One is that idea of starting with a why also makes me think of Simon Sinek's work on, I think he calls it the golden circle or the golden triangle or something, but it's very much about starting with why. I'll put the location in the chat in a minute. And also thank you. Your way of framing things is insightful and beautiful.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate the kind words.
I should
wish I
note
could see
too.
your face.
Oh, right. This is an interesting situation. I wanted to note that there are some other thank yous that have come into the chat as well. So shout out to those folks who are sharing. Thanks for Charmaine. Any other questions, thoughts, prompts, sharings? Sullivan, Lieutenant, PM, please go ahead.
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to thank you as well. And at the beginning of your talk, when you got us to write down, like I wrote down sort of more like for my profession about why I'm here. But after listening to you speak and being engaged and, putting in the comments, I realized that I do want to see like a better world for the next generation. Like I have two young children, 8 and 10, and I want them when they, grow up to have a better world than what we have today. And I think that's really the crux of this change making is to make it better for those who are coming after us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'm really grateful for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
Tracy, can I say something? I don't know if somebody else has a question lined up, but I just wanted to add a bit more to that. So
this is you now.
Sullivan, your comment and something, Tracy, you said earlier when you introduced me and we're welcoming everybody, reminded me of a teaching that I've been gifted from my friend Kelly Terbasket, who is Sealk. And she, in her teachings, Sealk teachings, she talks about a triangle behind you, which is made up of all the people who came before you, your ancestors, your teachers, your mentors, your friends, your family, who are the people who bring you to where you are right now. And then a triangle in front of you, and this is making me think of what you said, Sullivan, the people, the next generations, the people who are not here yet, what Sealk people call the people to be, who aren't even born yet, 7 generations, if you want to think about it that way. And that we're standing between these two triangles. So you're sort of standing there, and behind you is everything that came before you. In front of you are the people who are not here yet. And our work is right there. Our work is bringing ourselves, which is why it's important to kind of remember that you are the work, right? It's everything that you have been made up of, that's informed who you are and how you are in the world and where you are in the world, that brought you to the place that you are. And that's going to decide how you're going to put your foot forward into the future. So I just wanted to share that visual image of a triangle behind you, a triangle in front of you. And as you move through the world, as you move through today, and thinking about honoring everything that comes before you, and learning what we can from all of that, and in order to imagine and create the future that will be better, for people to be.
I feel like that is the most beautiful gift of a wrap up that I've ever heard. I think that has, for me, at least, pulled everything together absolutely beautifully. And Charmaine, we are so honored and thrilled and lucky, and beneficiaries of the gifts that you brought to share with us today, the images that you've painted. And personally, I'm just so thankful for your time. I know our team is so thankful for your time, the planning committee and the folks who are in the space who have had the opportunity to benefit. So, as you know, you're welcome to stay and hang out for the day and come and go. I know you have commitments, some happening at different times over the day, but feel free if you have some time that you want to hop back in or out. Hopefully, Teams actually lets you see things when you're in it if you rejoin, because we are here and so happy to be here. But thank you so much. And so
My pleasure.
I'm applauding and sending reactions, and I suspect that some folks will probably send some reactions that you can't see, but you can
I'm feeling it.
know.
I'm like trying to channel. I'm trying to feel it, and I'm like actually sending more energy than I might if I could actually see you. I'm trying to really connect with
Save the
you without being
connection.
able to see you. So
That's
thank you.
that's yeah, that's wonderful, and thank you, and then thanks again so much for your time. And okay, so just going to suggest to folks, so we have this session that goes for another half hour. We have a planned interlude and break, but while we set up and start to move, I'm just inviting you all to stretch as we're moving into the next part of this emerging session. So, oh, I don't know if you actually heard the crack, but my back did crack there. So just wanted in the the power of making little notes to self. We just wanted to invite you, having had the opportunity to hear from Charmaine, questions from peers, and some of the notes in chat, which we will be saving and sharing. Just what is change making now in your mind? Maybe you had a thought of what it was when you started out this morning, and maybe that's shifted in some way. So just a note to yourself on that little piece of paper that you have going. Also, feel free, if you want to put it in chat, you can. Just take 10 seconds, little note to self of what change making now feels like, hears like, sounds like, shows up like for you. Okay, we just ask you to keep that little note handy, and maybe it grows over the course of the day as you are able to come and go from this session and future sessions if you're able to join. And we can go to next slide. So now, Charmaine asked a variation of this question about the kinds of things that you want to see changed. And on that little note for yourself, just taking a moment to jot down the things that fire you up, the things that really cause the flexing of your empathy muscle, or the things that get you sparked. What issues do you see? Just jot down the things that are perplexing. And we've heard from one peer, who talked about future generations or her children in the world that we want for children in the future. Like, what is it you see for the future? What is it that bothers you now that might be uh, a barrier to that future? Just jot those things down. And again, just 15 seconds on the clock as a level set for yourself. We're going into this next discussion. Okay. And again, feel free always to jot in chat or unmute and talk. This is meant to be a casual connection time. With this, we're going to move into some consideration about values, and I'm going to turn over to my amazing peer, Samantha Sullivan-Sauer, for us to have a discussion. You're very welcome. Take it away.
So what we'd like to do now is take a little bit of time and just try to put some words to those values that we hold. So we're going to do this in such a way. Brene Brown has a Dare to Lead list of values. So you can use the QR code on the screen to get to the list. I've also put the very extensive list in the chat. It's over 60 words, I think, when I tried to count it yesterday. And we ask that you just read through this list. And as you're reading through this list, think of what some of your personal values might be and what some of your professional values might be. And write some of those down, because we're going to work with this list as we gather it. So let's take, a minute, maybe 2 minutes, go through the list, and on your piece of paper, write down a few values that represent your personal ones and a few values that represent your professional ones.
And what would you like time-wise for this? Are we thinking 5 minutes, Samantha?
I was thinking maybe 2, but I will also use the chat and thumbs up from people when they're done, or a hand up, something, just to give us a sense of where everyone's at. And if you'd rather look at a website, I've put the link directly into Brene Brown's list as well. So again, just checking in, looking to make a little bit of a list of personal values and another one for professional values, and give either in the chat or with a reaction, let me know when you've had an opportunity to pull those together. I've seen a couple of thumbs up in the chat or in the reactions. Okay, Ashley, I'm just going to get you to click once. So for those that are done their lists, I'd like you to look back at those lists and circle three values from each list that help you prioritize your work, your life, and help provide direction for you. And Ashley, as our viewers are looking on that, absolutely, if you could turn on the annotations within Teams. So what we have now on your screen is an image of all the words in Brene Brown's Dare to Lead list of values. And we're going to ask you to annotate. Now, in order to annotate, I am hoping that what you should see on your screen is a toolbar. And Ashley, maybe you can just use your cursor and maybe give an example. There is a pen tool. There's a highlighter tool. The heart is a little stamp. And you can stamp. And what I would like you to do is pick one value from each of your lists. So we're not going to do all of them, but one from your personal list, one from your professional list, and just highlight it or mark it or stamp it on the screen. Oh, and it sounds like our military friends are getting error messages. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of a switch. So for our Canadian Armed Forces friends, if you would like to put your values into the chat, that would be great. We're just trying to see any commonalities that we might have amongst the group. Always a plan B. Always have a backup plan. Okay, again, so if you're willing to share, please either use the annotation tool or put it into the chat. So we're seeing things like collaboration, compassion, human understanding, well-being, inclusion, love, respect, responsibility, compassion, connection, caring, future generations, grace, giving back, kindness, teamwork, respect and determination. So we are very much hoping that we are seeing some commonalities. And, based on what Charmaine, gave us in her session and what we've been talking about today, I think we're all here because we do have that care, that compassion, that desire to see a good future. And so thank you for sharing those values. And we encourage you to keep those values handy and in the forefront of your mind as we work through today and as we work through the next, month, 2 months, 6 months, year, and as we move forward. So Ashley, if you'd like to clear the annotations, and then move to the next slide. That'd be lovely. Wonderful. Okay. And so now that we have our values and we have our definition of change making, we want to start to apply it to what we're all doing in our day-to-day jobs, and what, if we're teaching, what field are we teaching in? So let's think about how change making shows up in our field. And the field may be, kind of the program you're teaching in, or it may be your actual job. Okay, so my job, I'm an educator. What does change making look as an educator? Or I could also talk about what does change making look for my students who are going to become engineering technologists. So take a little bit of time, either make a note to yourself, or if you're willing to share, put it in the chat. And I'm thinking forward to what's coming next in our performing change making session. And we are going to see and hear from colleagues who are change making in their field and how it's showing up. And I think, whether it's, a big impact, or even just all those small little impacts. And that's what really gets it for me, is those small impacts, those small changes, those small steps really come together in the long run to make a good change for all. All right, Ashley, could you move to the next slide? All right, at the start of today, Ian asked you what your superpower was. So we are sticking with the superpower theme, but now we want to know, what is your change-making superpower? What is it that you possess that you are able to share with the world to help support change-making? I will start. I'll give an example. So for me, my change-making superpower is the willingness to try. And if you are willing to put it in the chat, we'd love to hear. Willingness to learn, heart, adapting on the fly, grit, digging deep when it gets tough, creativity, beginning with yes instead of no, understanding, being able to grow from my mistakes. These are all wonderful gifts and superpowers that you bring, we all bring to our everyday situations, and making those small steps to really see the change we want to see going forward. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back over to Tracy.
Thank you, Samantha. Always inspired, and I'm always interested because, different times and places in my life, my values shift, right? Things deepen, we stretch and we grow. We find new reasons, and often those are through our values, right? Those really deep-seated beliefs, which for me have always connected quite overtly to change making. Next slide. So we're really thrilled to have an opportunity now to hear from someone who has taken those values that she holds dear, that frame her practice, and has infused them into her practice, and now educates, using these teaching superpowers that she's developed, which are steeped in change making, I would suggest. And so Melanie Doyle is going to share an approach to education that she shares across the institution too. So for anybody who is interested, she's great contact to reach out to support this work. So Mel, just shouting out, are you there?
I am here. Thank
Awesome.
you.
You're very welcome. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melanie, and thank you so much for being here and sharing this gift.
Thanks for having me. And I recognize I'm probably standing between everybody and a break. So I want to make sure I use this time well and let everyone know it is short. And I kept it very short just to give a little dip your toe into what some of the work is that I have been doing that Tracy has been wonderful at showing me is a change-making type of work. So, sometimes we don't realize that we are doing things that are considered change-making. So I'm just going to show you sort of a little bit of the work that I do and why I do it. And so, we have some definitions on the screen here. I do a lot in and around trauma-informed practice. Why do I do that work? Well, partially because I'm passionate about it. And I did decide to do some education around becoming a counselor. So I do a lot of trauma work with my clients as a psychotherapist. But really what it is this definition in the middle. Trauma is not what happened to you. It's what happens inside of you because of what happened to you. So it's the response to something. It's not the thing itself. It's the effect of that thing that happened and how it sits in our body and how we respond to it. And so I believe that we're all human beings, trying to connect in this world. And our students are trying to do the same thing. And we're trying to be seen and heard, but we're also doing it from a place often of injury. And so what that means is our nervous system is constantly responding, right? It's responding. So we're a bunch of interactions and reactions, and that's how I kind of see it. And so because of those reactions that we have, sometimes we miss things that we might misinterpret as something else. So anxiety, mood changes, poor concentration, lack of impulse control, difficulty learning, outbursts, difficulty articulating ideas. These are all trauma responses or stress responses that we have as individuals. Think about someone that solicited something in you recently. Could have been driving. It could have been in a meeting. It could have been a partner. And what happens inside of you, you feel a reaction, right? And that reaction is our stress response. And that's that fight, flight, freeze. And then there's a lot more that goes into it than that. So next slide, please. This quote for me really says it all. Trauma is perhaps the most avoided, ignored, belittled, denied, misunderstood, and untreated cause of human suffering. And I do believe each and every one of us has suffered some form of trauma, if not multiple, in our lifetime and will. And this is a part of life. We can't avoid it, but it's how we respond to it. And so part of our, there'll probably be a couple of enters on there. Sorry, I added some fun little things. Part of our work as educators is how can we create a space for our students that makes them feel safe and included and they belong, because if they feel that way, they're going to learn. And so as throughout the work I've been doing, part of it is looking at how I can simplify this in short time to sort of tell people what I know and how excited I am about it. And so first of all, we got to realize what trauma is and how it affects people. We need to recognize what the actual signs of it is and not misinterpret it for something else. And then our piece is that response. So it's the action that we do, and that's where we come in. And so this response through a trauma-informed approach by learning about what it looks like and how it shows up. And then through that, we can resist the re-traumatization in our institutions and with each other. And so next slide, please. With that, we want to recognize what it can look like in our classroom. So if you are teaching in any way, if you're a coach, if you are a trainer, your classroom has students. And so this is what it looks like. So fear of taking risks, difficulty focusing, retaining information, maybe withdrawal. There could be outbursts, difficulty with regulating emotion in stressful situations. And so if you see any of these things that looks like someone you know, or maybe even a little bit of yourself, it's likely a stress response. And so do we have to be counselors? Absolutely not. Do we have to know everything about trauma? No. We just have to know that there is something maybe going on beyond what it may look like on the outside. And so sometimes our outside and our inside don't fully match. And so with this work, next slide, please. There's principles of trauma-informed practice, and there's 6 principles or pillars, safety being the first one. Without that emotional safety in the classroom, students are going to be looking for threat. And threat doesn't have to be a physical threat. It could be in week 8, you're doing a presentation for 15 minutes in front of the whole class. That can be a threat for a student. And then right away, they're not thinking clearly, they're reacting, they're nervous, they're worried, I'm going to fail. And all of these things can start to kick in. And then it affects what they can actually listen to the rest of the day. Building trust, peer support and connection, really important to be able to provide opportunities for this. Collaboration and mutuality. So trauma is all about losing power. And so we want to try to give some of that power back. Empowering them, letting them speak and hearing their voice, and doing this with an equity-centered lens, and really challenging our own biases and allowing all different types of diversity in our classroom, and being open to other people's life experiences and lived experiences and bringing those into the classroom. So through all of this, we want to build resilience if possible and really have that growth mindset. And I think some of that was already mentioned today. But with that, the work that I've done, next slide, there's a couple of links here. So there's the first one is just an example. I didn't create this. I took it from a colleague who, not colleague, but I wish she was a colleague, an author who is a colleague in education and has done this great work around putting the principles in action and what that can look like. So this is a great tool for you to have. And then this next one, if we're able to bring it up on the screen, that would be great. And if we can't, I can share it. I'm not sure, Ashley, if you're able to. Thank you. So this is a trauma-informed classroom self-assessment checklist that I've created with the help of Corello, who is the author who has done a lot of work in this area. And so creating this checklist, and you'll have a copy of it in the chat, and you can download it and make it your own. And what I've done with this is created a self-assessment for myself where I can go through each principle. So safety being on the screen right now. And the question there is, what extent does the learning environment, sorry, it's a bit small. I'm going to look at my other screen, my little old eyes. What extent does the learning environment ensure the physical, emotional, social, and academic safety of students, including feeling safe to make and learn from mistakes? That's the big one. And so I have some criteria here, and this is a living document that I try to add to. And so this is for you to use however you want or not use, but ultimately this can guide you through some trauma-informed practices in your classroom, in your training, in any environment where you are working with others. And so I have a column for yes, not yet for myself, so I can kind of go through and say, yeah, I'm doing some of this, not yet for some of it. What I hope to do or what I am doing would be in the explanation, and then any follow-up I want to do. So it could be further learning, it could be sharing with a colleague. So for example here, one of the things on the list is, do you refer to people by their correct name and pronouns? So that's creating safety in the space, psychological safety. Next one down is trustworthiness and transparency. And so one of the things on the next, if you don't mind scrolling a little bit, Ashley, sorry, on that one is, are your expectations of the student clear? Is the syllabus clear? That is about transparency. Are you consistent in your communication? So that's an example of trustworthiness and transparency. In support and connection, do we link them to those supports in our syllabus? Are we providing office hours? Are we providing the students opportunities to connect with each other in class? Collaboration and mutuality, principle 4. Looking at, do students have a role in evaluating their own learning? That's very empowering for a student. And principle 5, to what extent are the students viewed as experts of their own experience? So this is really important when we're talking about giving students voice. So giving them choice over how they engage with their content, letting their voice be heard through their assessments and assignments and in class. And then principle 6 is the equity-centered lens. And one thing that's really interesting is we do have a diversity calendar here at Georgian, and it's a great thing to link into your course and acknowledge different cultures, holidays, and celebrations throughout each month. And so if you get a copy of that, you can get it through the EDIB Center. It's right on their website. You can acknowledge the different cultures. And then an additional principle at the end of this to consider is your own growth and also students building resilience. So do you recognize students' strengths and resilience? Do you communicate a sense of realistic optimism about how the students can achieve their goals? And so again, big checklist, short time to go through it today, but I wanted to introduce it to you. I'm happy to speak to it at greater length if anybody is interested in that work. And we can just go back to the Power Deck. I think that was it. Yeah, so that's how I have kind of approached this change-making work and trying to make a difference in students' lives and in my own, because I find this work helps me as much as hopefully it helps the students. So thank you very much for having me, and I will make sure I end so that we don't go over.
The love is real, Melanie. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your thought. And I can only say that this is that the key components that inform trauma-informed practice are those values that are essential to change making, which includes the empathy, collaboration, leadership, or understanding that we have to allow others to lead. We can't always be leading, that others have knowledge and wisdom that should lead, and then opportunity to practice, which you're evidently modeling through this work. So thank you so much for taking the time and sharing that. And here we are at 10:27. We are wrapping up this first emerging session this morning, and I hope folks have found some connection and something that can inspire your practice. One of the things that if folks are interested in learning more that Ashoka does share is a Changemaker Index. You will need to make an account. You will need to choose the no access code, and you'll need to know that there are paid things you can buy, and then there is resources that are shared that are free as well. So you can move forward with that on your own time if you're interested in digging deeper into exploring the skills and mindsets that Ashoka has identified as key to change making. And we can go to the next slide. And just to answer a question, because there has been great reminders, so not all of our friends or attendees are going to be able to access our internal SharePoint. We have set up a flow page, what is called a flow page, to curate links to resources, and we're continuing to add to that during the day today. So we'll make sure that everything that has come up today appears in there so that you'll be able to access in the future. Note that anything that is from Georgian SharePoint that is shared and open access does expire in 1 month. Okay, so we cannot extend past a month. So if there's things that you're interested in, like for example, having downloading that work page that Melanie shared, download it, today or after the session or tonight or this week, because in 1 month, if you're external, that will go away.